It's the early 1980s, and Hollywood is buzzing. The movie industry is in a golden era, and a new breed of actors is emerging, bringing a raw, unpolished intensity to the screen. Among them is a young, rebellious talent who catches the eye of critics and audiences alike: Mickey Rourke. With his dark charisma, unconventional looks, and undeniable talent, Rourke is hailed as the next Marlon Brando. His performances in films like Diner and Rumblefish make people sit up and pay attention. He's not just a good-looking face. He's the kind of actor who seems to peel away his own skin, exposing a raw nerve beneath. There's something dangerous about him, something authentic. Hollywood loves him. But Mickey? He's always been suspicious of love, especially the kind that comes with strings attached. From the start, Rourke made it clear he wasn't interested in playing the Hollywood game. As the offers poured in and studios begged for his attention, Mickey approached his career like a poker game, bluffing, folding, and discarding huge opportunities without a second thought. He was offered lead roles that could have made him a mega-star, parts in Platoon, Top Gun, even Rain Man. But he turned them down. To Rourke, those were sellout moves. He had no intention of being another Hollywood pretty boy. He wanted the gritty, the real, the ugly. He believed in preserving his integrity, but even early on, some wondered if he wasn't just hell-bent on self-destruction. Despite his rebellion, Mickey's talent was undeniable. His magnetism made him stand out in films like The Pope of Greenwich Village and Angel Heart. He was a leading man with an edge, dangerous, unpredictable, a ticking time bomb. But he was also a perfectionist, obsessed with his craft in a way that bordered on self-immolation. He'd clash with directors, co-stars, and producers, often pushing scenes to the breaking point. His method of acting style was intense, sometimes reckless. On the set of 912 Weeks, a film that would forever define his persona, Mickey's insistence on pushing the envelope turned what could have been just another erotic drama into something darker. His scenes with co-star Kim Basinger were so intense that Basinger reportedly said she felt violated. For Mickey, it wasn't just about acting. It was about losing himself, blurring the line between reality and fiction. And while it made for a compelling performance, it left a trail of tension and mistrust in its wake. But 912 Weeks wasn't just another film. It catapulted Rourke into superstardom, turning him into an international sex symbol. Women swooned, men admired, and Mickey seemed poised to conquer Hollywood. He was offered the kinds of roles that other actors would kill for. But instead of capitalizing on his new status, Mickey pushed back even harder. The industry wanted him to be a leading man, a bankable star. Rourke, on the other hand, had no patience for Hollywood's rules and didn't care about fame or fortune. He was more interested in exploring his dark side, in playing out his inner turmoil on screen, regardless of the consequences. And so, he began to self-sabotage. As the 80s rolled into the 90s, Mickey's career started to unravel. He picked fights on set, trashed his own movies in the press, and started turning up late, or not at all. By the time he starred in Harley-Davidson and The Marlboro Man, he was already gaining a reputation as a Hollywood outcast. The roles that had once seemed limitless began to dry up. He still had offers, but now they were for B-movies and straight-to-video trash. Mickey's stubbornness and volatility were no longer seen as proof of his artistic integrity. They were liabilities. And when the industry began to shut its doors on him, Mickey did something nobody expected. He walked away. It wasn't just a temperamental actor's meltdown. For Mickey, Stepping away from Hollywood was almost a necessity. Acting, he claimed, was eating him alive. And so, at the height of his fame, he decided to go back to his first love: boxing. People were stunned. How could a movie star, poised to be the next Brando, trade the glamour of Hollywood for the brutality of the ring? But Mickey wasn't just some dilettante looking for a hobby. Boxing was in his blood. He'd trained seriously as a teenager, and for years, he'd been quietly sharpening his skills in private gyms across LA. The ring was where he felt real, where the stakes were life and death, where he could finally get rid of the demons that tormented him. For nearly 5 years, Rourke fought professionally. He took on younger, stronger opponents and won most of his matches. But the price was high. His face, once adored by millions, took a beating. Nose broken, cheekbones shattered, jaw dislocated. The damage was extensive, and after a series of failed plastic surgeries, Mickey emerged looking like a stranger, his once brooding good looks replaced by a grotesque mask of scar tissue and botched operations. But that wasn't the worst of it. The damage wasn't just physical. The punishment he endured in the ring left him with brain damage, memory loss, and a host of psychological issues. His boxing career was over almost as quickly as it started, leaving him broken, and more isolated than ever. When Mickey tried to return to Hollywood, it wasn't as a triumphant star, but as a cautionary tale. His face made him almost unrecognizable, and his reputation for being difficult made studios wary. He struggled to get work, taking whatever scraps came his way: small roles in obscure films, appearances in low-budget action flicks. The man who had once been a golden boy was now a pariah, known more for his erratic behavior and grotesque appearance than his acting chops. His career hit rock bottom in the late 90s, with a string of flops that made him a punchline in Hollywood circles. There were whispers that he was finished, that he'd never make a comeback. Then, against all odds, in 2008, Darren Aronofsky came calling with The Wrestler. The role was brutal, unflinching, and, most importantly, it mirrored Mickey's own life. A washed-up star clinging desperately to past glory? It was Mickey's story. He poured everything into the role, drawing from his own pain, his own humiliation. The result was a raw and vulnerable performance that left audiences and critics in awe. He wasn't just acting, he was bleeding on the screen, bearing every scar and wound for the world to see. The acclaim was immediate. He won a Golden Globe, was nominated for an Oscar, and suddenly, the industry that had turned its back on him welcomed him home. For a moment, it seemed like the impossible had happened. Mickey Rourke was back. But Mickey's self-destructive streak was never far away. Despite the success of The Wrestler, he couldn't help but sabotage himself. He clashed with directors, demanded rewrites, and turned down roles that could have solidified his comeback. He fell back into old patterns, the same patterns that had destroyed his career the first time. Hollywood, always fickle, moved on again, leaving Rourke to drift back into obscurity. Today, Mickey Rourke is a ghost of his former self. The botched surgeries have left his face a haunting reminder of what once was. He continues to work, popping up in surprising roles now and then, but the magic is gone. He'll always be remembered for The Wrestler. But for every glimpse of brilliance, there are a dozen terrible roles that tarnish his legacy. Rourke's story isn't just one of a career gone awry. It's a story of self-destruction, of talent wasted, of a man who couldn't or wouldn't play by the rules. He could have been a legend. Instead, he's become a tragic figure, forever fighting shadows of what might have been. Brawls, Botox, and box office flops. That's the story of Mickey Rourke, a Hollywood rebel, a tortured soul, and a cautionary tale of what happens when the greatest enemy is yourself.